Morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Jim Begley. I'm the chairperson of the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors. I'd like to welcome you all to the committee meetings this morning, April 3rd, 2024. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building located at 7350 World Communications Drive. And recording this meeting will be uploaded to the M.U.D website after the meeting's conclusion. Safety briefing. I'd like to invite Vice President of Safety and Security Shane Hunter to provide a briefing regarding protocol for all individuals in attendance at the board meeting today in the event of an emergency. Shane, welcome.
Good morning, Vice President Shane Hunter, Safety and Security. We are on the first floor here at M.U.D headquarters, and normal entry and exit will be through this door at the back of the room. There's also another exit on the right-hand side of the room here that leads to a central hallway. It's in that hallway where you'll find the nearest fire extinguisher and first aid kit. And a little further down on the right near the restrooms is the nearest AED. Show of hands with the location of the AED. Mine CPR trained in the room. All right, thank you very much. If we need medical personnel here for any reason today, 911 will be contacted from the security staff, who will then escort medical personnel into this space. Also, it is severe weather season. The severe weather shelter for this building will be in this hallway right outside this door on the right. And if we need to evacuate this building for any reason, we can use either door. But if you use this door, we'll take two lefts and end up in the parking garage where we'll conduct accountability. That concludes the briefing.
Thank you, Shane. Roll call.
Begley.
Here.
Cook. Here. Friend.
Here.
Sidzik.
Here.
McGowan.
Here.
Howard. Here. Kavanaugh.
I'd like to advise all of those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available on the wall in the back of the boardroom. We've changed our agenda up just a little bit today to accommodate Mr. Kubat. I'd like to ask Rick to come up to present on the third legislative report for 2024. Welcome, Rick.
Does this work? Okay. The board report should be found on tab 11. I'm going to start on page 1. I'm going to skip a bill and go to LB 1069. That was a state fire marshal's cleanup bill. Just wanted to alert the board that that bill has been placed on final reading, and it did incorporate language that Mr. Willis worked on to provide the district and other natural gas providers with additional due process rights should purported violations of the Nebraska Pipeline Safety Act occur. That bill does contain an increase in meter set assessments and potential fines under the Nebraska Pipeline Safety Act. From there, I'm going to move on to LB 1245 on page 2. That bill was incorporated into the governor's mainline biennium budget bill. For purposes of the district, what that bill does, it provides that $2 million can be used for a labor training component to train folks for lead service line replacement. As it appeared in the biennium budget, that labor training component essentially acts as a grant program, and it will be administered by the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy. Of importance to the district, it provides that the remaining $8 million, to the degree that the district so desires, we can use that $8 million to leverage against the federal drinking water state revolving fund, which is a partial loan forgiveness program. So essentially, we can stretch that $8 million a little bit further by incorporating it into the federal program. That being said, the federal program for lead service line replacement does have some red tape. In addition to that, it expands the ways that we can spend the $8 million. So that's a good thing. It was in the budget, and that was signed off by the governor and reported to the legislature on Tuesday. So that is, in fact, current law. From there, I'm going to move on, and I'm going to talk about a couple of bills in a collective sense LB 1315 from Senator Linehan to raise the state sales tax rate from 5.5% to potentially 6.5%. And the bill right below it, Senator Wayne's LB 1342, to exempt residential electricity, natural gas, and it is now propane. As of yesterday, LB 388, which was the Senator Linehan and the Revenue Committee and the governor's main tax bill, was up for debate. That budget bill contained quite a few things. It provided for the removal of some sales tax exemptions. The original form of that bill provided that the state could increase the 5.5% state sales tax rate up to potentially 6.5%, all subject to how revenues were coming in. So if revenues didn't come in well, they could go up as high as 1 cent. If revenues came in better than expected, could be 3/4 of 1%, a half. That was in LB 388. That bill struggled yesterday. It did advance from general file to select file, with the understanding that Senator Linehan said that the proposed increase in state sales tax is now off the table. They essentially allowed that bill to advance with the understanding that they're going to continue to work on it. They're also looking for a revenue source to replace the potential amount of revenue generated from the sales tax increase. What they're looking to do is provide property tax relief. That was a long-winded way of saying it looks like the purported 1% increase in sales tax that the district would have been subject to when we went out and bought most materials and inputs necessary to operate our system appears to be off the table. The reason why I wanted to also talk about Senator Wayne's bill, LB 1342, because it was also part of that LB 388, being that the contained in LB 388 right now is an exemption specifically and narrowly applied only for residential use, one's primary residence, for electricity, natural gas, and propane. That would save our customers roughly $50 to $57 annually. And again, it's still in LB 388. It's advanced from general to select file, but what happens with that bill during the course of negotiation is anybody's guess. It seems as though that bill right now, the LB 388, has an uphill battle. Moving on from there, LB 1358, which is Senator McDonald's bill that would allow public power and the district to provide for a compensation increase for board members, has been incorporated into LB 1300. That bill is, LB 1300 is on the floor this morning. It's the fourth bill listed. Contained within LB 1300 are 6 other bills, and essentially LB 1358 is one of them. We discussed this briefly. It would allow the district to provide a compensation adjustment for board members from the last time that you had a compensation adjustment, which in your case was January 1st of 2007. It would also require that the board vote on any compensation adjustments. If you were to do a compensation adjustment that included cost of living plus 1%, you can do that on your own accord. A compensation adjustment with cost of living adjustment and more than 1% would have to go on the ballot for a vote of the people. The district component of the bill is how it's structured for cities, counties, and the district. The portion of the bill that relates to public power, essentially public power would just have a doubling of their salary, but they would have to continue to go back to the legislature for purposes of the district. You would have the ability to make a compensation adjustment once every 2 years, and essentially, in that sense, you'd have self-autonomy. Then the last bill I wanted to mention is on the last page. It was a bill introduced last session, LB 636 from Senator Albrecht. What that bill did was it said local entities, cities, counties, villages cannot enact local ordinances limiting fuel choices. This is what we see in some parts of the country where they say, hey, new development, we want you to be only on electricity. We want you to get away from carbon fuels. This would prohibit local entities from doing that. That LB 636 was amended into LB 867, and that bill is on final reading or the final stage of debate. So it looks like it should go and be subject to the signature of the governor. So ran through quite a bit there. Happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Rick, when is the last day of this session?
It is April 18th. I believe there's 7 business days left.
Rick, in the interest of time, maybe you could send me an email as opposed, unless it's something fairly quick, on LB 1069. I'm looking to see what are the additional due process protocols that they put in there. And if you want to send me an email or other board members that are interested, just in the interest of time, unless it's a quick explanation and you have time to do it now.
Right now, under current law, the way it is structured is purported violations of the Nebraska Pipeline Safety Act essentially goes from the State Fire Marshal's office to the Attorney General's office, and then the Attorney General's office reviews it, and they can send us notice to the degree that they're going to pursue and levy fines. The changes that were incorporated in the bill is now if there is a purported violation of the Nebraska Pipeline Safety Act, the State Fire Marshal has to provide us notice. We can agree. If we disagree, we can say, no, we have issues with your purported violation. We want access to the Administrative Procedures Act, and essentially you'd go before an administrative judge before it goes to the Attorney General's office. So essentially what it does is it requires an additional step before it goes to the Attorney General's office.
Are there administrative judges already appointed, or is that something that is decided if we would raise that issue and want to take that? I mean, who's an administrative judge?
I have not practiced in front of an administrative judge thus far in my career, but they exist as an intermediary often before things go to court. And so there's got to be a few of them out there because they're involved in quite a few other things.
So is this someone who already sits as like a county court judge or a district court judge or an appellate court judge? And so it's somebody who's already holds an appointed or reelected position?
Yes, and it's very similar to a court proceeding. They also have additional latitude where the rules of evidence might not apply. So an administrative judge say, I just want to see everything. Or if the parties agree, the parties can say, hey, we want the rules of evidence to apply. It operates similar to the court system, but it's not as, I would say, rules or rigid based. Would you say that's a fair?
Thank you.
And to that degree, I can get you more information on the Administrative Procedures Act and that whole process.
I don't know that I need that. I can just talk to one of you guys later. I've got a couple other questions, but in the interest of time, it's not that important.
These are the kinds of things that put you to sleep when you're in law school, if you want to read, these texts.
Any other questions for Rick? Rick, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Senior Vice President and Chief Operations Officer Kendall Miner will now review the proposed capital expenditures. Mr. Miner, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and directors of the board. For the capital expenditure letter for this board meeting, we have 8 expenditures, 6 items that are listed for buildings, plants, and equipment, 2 items listed for system improvements. I would like to highlight a few items 1, 2, and 5. The first item being removal of existing underground storage tanks to be replaced with above-ground storage tanks. This value is at $225,000. The use of these tanks is for fueling M.U.D equipment and vehicles on site. These tanks have reached their end of useful life, so we would like to, get those replaced. And some of the advantages of this is to allow for better monitoring. Here's an example of the above-ground storage tanks. These tanks are double-lined. They do not have a secondary containment around them with the concrete structure because they are double-lined tanks. They allow for easy monitoring, and it alleviates a lot of the environmental remediation practices if you have storage tanks that are underground. So this is the first item that we feel like is really going to be beneficial long-term for the plant. The second item, Jay, if you advance, the second item is the purchase and install of 1,000 leak loggers with a 5-year analytical life of service from the manufacturer, as well as well portal maintenance and communication. This is valued at a $1.5 million investment. This will cover approximately 100 miles of piping and leak detection for us. Some of the advantages for this process and this methodology is we currently have 345 loggers in the system, which we have 75 leaks that have been identified, 40 main breaks, and 32 service lines. And with that, we've seen about $400,000 in savings. For an emergency leak repair for crews to go out, that's an average cost of about $17,000. And with the leaks being able to be monitored early on in advance, it allows us the ability to reach out to customers in advance, give them notice, let them know we're coming out. But we've also seen a delta of about a $7,000 decrease. It also, gives us the ability to also have crews will go out and work during the daytimes, safer environment, so on and so forth. So we really see this as being a really big advantage of us having this in the system. And we're looking to have these leak loggers to eventually cover 500 to 700 miles of pipe, which really gives us advantage of advanced monitoring, leak detection, and being able to have better maintenance on our system long term. Next slide. Here's a picture of one of the leaks that were found with the leak loggers. With this was a really good example of the leak loggers being able to identify this leak in the system where it was a loud noise. The crews were able to be able to go out and be dispatched, make this leak repair, and not have an emergency where this leak was, an immediate danger or, risk to the community where we had to go out and dig up concrete late night, cold weather, whatever the conditions may have been. And so this is an advantage, and this is just an example of one of the leak loggers, and we'll have more information later on that will be presented. Next slide. And so this last one is a little bit near and dear to my heart because when I first started engineer design, I used MicroStation. And so for me, this MicroStation is being replaced with AutoCAD. Is what we're proposing at a $280,000 investment, which, AutoCAD is one of the leading industry softwares that has, a lot of utilities as well as engineering firms have, converted to AutoCAD because it has a more advanced API, which is an application programming interface. It really talks to our ArcGIS Pro, our Esri systems, as well as our SAP applications. This allows for our AutoCAD drafting team and our engineering team to increase their efficiency and productivity in engineering design and drawings. But also, this is one of the industry standards now for utility and engineering, and a lot of the AutoCAD drafters and things like that for recruitment purposes to the organization. This will be really beneficial for us long term. So those were the items that I wanted to cover here. I did have this slide that just showed some of the advantages of the advancement of AutoCAD versus MicroStation. And I don't want to go through all of them, but it just highlights and shows the advances that AutoCAD has over MicroStation in the industry for the software implementation and integration. And with that, any questions?
Thank you, Kendall.
Yeah.
Senior Plant Engineer Matthew Pelton will review the acceptance of contracts and payments of final estimates. Morning, Matt.
Good morning. Matthew Pelton, Interim Senior Plant Engineer, filling in for Adam Gartner, and I'll be presenting the finals letter located on tab 6. I have a longer finals letter this month. There are 4 water development projects, 1 project at Platte South, and 1 joint contract with the City of Omaha. I plan to highlight a few of those. The first project is WP 1619, which is a water development project with Kirsten Construction. This is a new subdivision, Copper Creek at 168th Street and Military Road. The project was bid October 2018. However, the developer did not complete paving and release for start of construction until September 2022. The developer approved and paid for the significant cost increases for material and labor in change order number 1. The project was finally completed in 2023. The next project to highlight quick is the garage trench drain repair at Platte South. The project was a maintenance activity to replace damaged concrete and drainage inside the building. The garage building is original to the plant construction in 1968, and previous repairs to that concrete had failed. The project removed and replaced about 1,200 square feet of concrete interior to the garage. The last project I plan to highlight is the joint contract with the City of Omaha and Hawkins Construction for roadway improvements at Grover Street between 50th and 60th Streets. The city determined the existing asphalt pavement on Grover Street had deteriorated and was at the end of its serviceable life. This project reconstructed the roadway, including new sidewalks and a new storm sewer system. The work was required to remove conflicts with the existing infrastructure. We replaced about 0.9 miles of larger 16-inch water main concurrently with the roadway construction. M.U.D construction crews completed gas relocations separately from the joint contract. Joint contracts like this represent a good way for M.U.D to replace infrastructure while minimizing disruptions in customers and traffic. And with that, are there any questions?
One quick question.
Yep.
On the first project you talked about,
Got it.
why was it postponed in 2018 after they bid it? And are we okay with them postponing it like that?
That's a great question, Director McGowan, but I'm not sure why the developer delayed where they did. Could have been for a myriad of reasons. And these projects are paid for by the developer, so I would assume that we're probably okay with it. Our preference would be not, but in this case, we work with them.
We just didn't accept their postponement.
Yep. At that case, they're willing to pay for it, and as long as we can work it into the schedule, and Hawkins is okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's done by Kirsten. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Vice President of Procurement and Enterprise Services, John Zellers, will now review the bids on materials and contracts. Morning, John.
Good morning. Excuse me. John Zellers, Vice President, Procurement and Enterprise Services. Bids on materials and contracts may be found under tab 7. There are just a few items that I'd like to discuss this morning, and the first may be found on the middle of page 2. We accepted bids for a metal storage building at Florence. All the bids exceeded the budget and are being recommended for rejection. Engineering and the Florence team will relook at the project scope and plan to budget and take bids in 2025. The next 2 items may be found at the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3. We received bids for 2 heavy-duty medium-size and 1 heavy-duty large-size rubber tire loader backhoe. We are recommending the second low bid, as the low bidder took several exceptions to the specifications to include not providing a loaner machine if needed and not providing a coupler that would allow us to use many of our existing attachments with the machines. The last item I will speak to this morning may be found on page 4. We are recommending a contract extension with Bus Lincoln for painting fire hydrants. Bus Lincoln has agreed to hold the terms and pricing that they were under contract with last year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just one quick one on the fire hydrants. Don't we have our summer help do the fire hydrants? You know, the school kids that work during the summer, don't they paint the fire hydrants? Isn't that one of their big jobs?
So we used to hire summer help for that, and I believe 2022 was the last year that we did that. As we started evaluating I'm going to call it performance of the painting systems, we have found that those that are performed by the contractors have on average about a 10-year life, where those performed by internal staff and summer help is 5 years. And that's primarily due to the way that we prep the hydrants. So the contractors have the ability to sandblast the hydrants, so get all the old coating off, where we don't have that ability in-house, and that is more related to hand machines and scrapers and then primers.
So the summer help does nothing with painting the hydrants anymore at all?
That is correct. All right, thank you.
Thanks, John. Vice President of Engineering, Masa Nia, will now review the proposed main extensions. Morning, Masa.
Good morning. Masa Nia, Vice President of Engineering. Behind tab 8 is the main extensions letter. This month we have 3 water main extensions. The impact of these 3 projects includes water service and fire protection for 555 residential lots and 12 outlots. These are fairly sizable subdivisions that total approximately 5.5 miles of water mains, and these are located in District Subdivisions 2 and 4. I'd like to mention the first 2 projects, WP 2067 and 2077, have additional contributions being made by the developer for Pioneer main fees and connection charges. This is not part of the project cost shown on the letter. However, this is collected by the district per our procedure to contribute towards oversizing of water mains to get water to these developments. The total contributions are approximately $212,000 for WP 2067 and $323,000 for WP 2077. And I'd pause there before I move on to tab 9, if there are any questions. All right. Behind tab 9 is amendment number 2 for the Southeast Bellevue water main extension. On March 3rd, 2022, the district entered into an agreement with HDR for professional engineering services to design the water mains for the Southeast Bellevue water main extension project. The map shown up there on the west end, it starts at 36 and Platteview Road in the blue, and that would be Phase A. Phase B is in the gray dashed line. And on the east end, all the way to Harlan Lewis Road, is Phase 3 with the red line. The original not-to-exceed amount of the agreement was around $925,000, with Amendment 1 increasing the not-to-exceed amount by $58,000. As you may recall, Amendment number 1 was approved by the board on May of 2023 to complete potholing services and additional design work related to a 48-inch gate valve installation on the west end of the project. This amendment number 2 in front of you today is related to the City of Bellevue requesting a redesign to remove Phase B, the middle portion again in gray, that could be bid and constructed separately as they pursue grant funding for that section of main installation. Additional costs include work for permitting fees related to the railroad crossings and having an on-site representative as required by the Army Corps of Engineers for the levee crossing on Phase C. Amendment number 2 is requested for a total amount of $123,400, of which the district is responsible for an estimated $875. This will increase the not-to-exceed amount to $1.1 million and the estimated district contribution to about $27,500. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Masa, of the, maybe I'm just not seeing it, of the total amount of 1.1, How much is the district paying of that?
Yeah, about $27,500 is our contribution, and that's related.
That's for the whole amendment of the 1.1?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And this, so if whoever else, Bellevue or whoever else is paying this, are they the ones that selected HDR, or are we the ones that selected HDR?
We did, and there's good reason for that. HDR had the design for the expressway, so there's some efficiencies found with the coordination of that, as well as they had involvement with the sewer district that's being built in the South Sarpy area.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Masa. Vice President of Human Resources, Bonnie Savine, will now review employee wage and/or salary increases and ratifications. Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning. Bonnie Savine, Vice President, Human Resources. I'll begin by recapping some employee counts. On March 31st, 2023, there were 871 regular full-time employees, as well as 3 regular part-time, for a total of 874. To end this March, there were 890 regular full-time employees and 5 regular part-time employees, so that gave us a total of 895 regular employees. We also had 9 interns on staff at the end of March of this year. And then a brief review of jobs that are going through the job placement process. We have 5 jobs that have requisitions. Those are being reviewed and going through the approval process. We also have 14 jobs currently posted. 9 are external only, and those you will see on the monitor. We have 2 that are internal and external at the same time, so those 2 are also listed on the screen, and we have 3 internal only at the moment. Additionally, we have 14 other jobs that are in the application review or interview stages, and then we have 4 jobs that have 5 selected candidates. They will be onboarding in the near future. Moving on to tab 10. Here you will find the wage and/or salary increases and ratifications letter. Human Resources is recommending the Board of Directors approve wage or salary increases for 14 employees this month. 9 of those employees are OAC. They are receiving wage increases due to posted job promotions. We have 3 OAC employees receiving a wage increase due to a natural job progression, and we have 2 SPA employees that are on the letter for salary increases as well due to promotion. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer Mark Myers will present the actuarial evaluation report on their retirement plan. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Mark Myers, Senior Vice President, Chief Financial Officer. I'll be presenting the information behind tab 12, including a summary memo and 3 documents prepared by Kavanaugh McDonald Consulting. The first of those documents is an actuarial valuation report as of January 1, 2024. The next is the GASB statements number 67 and 68 report. And then the third is a summary of the actuarial valuation results that will be presented by Pat Beckham from Kavanaugh McDonald this morning. The actuarial valuation report provides a comprehensive review of the district's pension plan and contains a really excellent summary of that information on the first few pages of the document. There are 2 key pieces of information contained in that report. One is the actuarial funded ratio, and the other is the amount of the district's actuarially determined contribution needed to fund the plan. Related to the first item, the funded ratio as of January 1, 2024 was 92.9%, or 93% when rounded. This is slightly down from last year's ratio of 93.9%, but continues to reflect a very strong financial position for the pension plan. And Ms. Beckham will share more information about that funded ratio during her presentation. The second item to highlight is the actuarially determined contribution to the pension plan for 2024. This amount has been calculated to be $11.4 million. However, management is recommending that we contribute $12.9 million to the plan, which is consistent with the amount that we assumed in the 2024 budget. This is about $1.5 million or 13% above the required contribution level, and it's consistent with the district's historical practice of contributing more than that required amount. By contributing more than is required, we help to pay down that unfunded actuarial liability, which helps to increase the funded percentage, and it also helps to mitigate any unfavorable results that might occur in 2024 compared to the actuarial assumptions. I would also like to thank the board for your ongoing commitment to funding this plan and ensuring that we fulfill our commitments to our employees. Turning next to the GASB 67 and 68 report. This report provides information that's needed for the annual recording of the net pension liability and pension expense in our audited financial statements. This is the report that's done in accordance with governmental auditing or accounting standards. The one item to report here related to this is the pension expense for 2023 is $7.4 million. That's significantly lower than the expense that was recognized in 2022, which was $16.5 million. And the primary driver of that difference is just the change in investment returns from year to year. In 2023, we experienced positive returns of 16.2% on the investments in the pension trust, whereas last year we had a net loss of about 17%, causing that difference between the years. With that, I would like to just introduce Pat Beckham to present a few key highlights related to the plan. And Ms. Beckham is the principal and consulting actuary with Kavanaugh McDonald and has been a valuable resource for the district for several years. Pat?
Thank you, Mark. Pat Beckham, Kavanaugh McDonald. Before we get started, if I could, I would like to acknowledge my colleague, Megan Skiles. She actually does all the hard work, and then I just get to come and visit with you guys. So I thought it was time for her to get a little bit of the glory of being an actuary. So Mark has done a nice job of summarizing everything, so I could just go sit down. He's done a very good job of hitting the high points. But if we could go to the next slide, I'll try to walk through these pretty quickly. If you have questions, please stop anytime and ask me. So this is just a reminder, because we only talk about this every year, but the idea with funding the retirement plan is that contributions are made while your employees are working, and as that money goes into the trust, there are investment earnings that help pay for the benefits. So there's only two sources to pay benefits: it's contributions or investment income. The actuarial valuation is really modeling what we think will happen in the future. Obviously, we don't know exactly what salary progressions will be, when people will retire, how long they will live. We use assumptions to help us bridge what we know now and what we think is going to happen in the future. But as you'll see, there are differences from year to year in the actual experience versus what the assumptions anticipated, and that has an impact on the funded status as well as contribution. The cost method's goal is to allocate the cost of the benefits over a working career as a level percent of payroll. And there's sort of a generational equity theory behind that generations of active members as well as ratepayers are kind of paying the same cost over time. That's a hard one to ensure at times, but that is indeed the goal. If we could have the next slide, please. So what impacted the results that we're going to look at today? It's really everything that happened in calendar year 2023. As Mark mentioned, the investment return on market value was very strong at 16.2. You might recall that due to the volatility on the market value of assets, we really don't want to use it. It would be great this year. Last year, minus 17%, that would not have been pleasant. So we use a tool that we call an actuarial smoothing method that just kind of averages out the highs and the lows. So because of that, the return on actuarial value was actually 6.1, which is less than our assumption of 6.75. So that creates what we call an actuarial loss. The experience was not as favorable as what was anticipated by the assumption, and that loss was $3.5 million. Now, the good news is that that strong return has reduced the difference between the smooth value of assets and the market value of assets. Last year, that difference was $54 million, and that's down to $11 million this year. So there is a silver lining there. On the liability side, we had a loss there as well. That loss was $5.5 million, largely due to higher salary increases than assumed. Again, higher salaries translate to higher benefits and therefore higher costs. And then the COLA was higher than we anticipated. The actual COLA was 3% and the assumption was 2.5. So liabilities were higher, assets were lower. So aggregate experience was a loss of $9 million. That you'll see that flow through and increase the unfunded actuarial liability. Again, bring the funded ratio down a little bit and increase the actuarial contribution. Next slide, please. So liabilities follow people, follow your members. So anyone who is entitled to a benefit payment of any kind, including a refund of their employee contributions, are included in the valuation. So this snapshot is, 1/1/24, so it varies from the numbers that Bonnie shared with you earlier. And nothing particularly unusual here, but the active membership is up 2.7% from last year. And we had that an increase last year as well after a period of having pretty stable or decreasing number of active members. Next slide, please. So funded status. Actuarial liability is sort of the theoretical amount that should be in the trust fund if we're funding people's benefits while they're working. We can calculate and figure out how much money should be in there. That's the $590 million. We compare it to the smooth actuarial value of assets, which is $548 million, and that difference is the unfunded actuarial liability, $42 million. And again, you see that's up from $34 million last year. That's because of the adverse experience that we just talked about. All that really means is in order for the plan to get to 100% funded, there has to be contributions to bridge that $42 million gap, and you have to fund the benefits for people who are actively working. Okay, and we'll see those numbers in a minute. The same information, but looking at a ratio, so assets divided by liabilities. Again, on a smooth value basis, as Mark mentioned, we're about 93% funded, about 94% last year. On a market value basis, you see that strong return come through. Last year, we were 84% funded. This year, 91%.
And Pat, is that 84%, that's because we had a loss of 17% last year versus our gain of 16% this year?
Yes.
That is reflected in the market value there?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
So it's much more volatile than the actuarial value, which is smoothed. And again, a 93% funded ratio is very, very strong. Many plans would like to switch places with you. Next slide. On the contribution side, again, we develop the contribution rate, again, because the goal is to have that be stable, and then we take that rate and translate it into a dollar amount of contribution for the district for the current year. So here you have the results from the 1/1/2024 valuation compared to the 2023 valuation. The total contribution rate this year, again, it's up a little bit because of the experience that we talked about earlier, just over 23% of payroll. And then the employees contribute 9%, and the rest is the district's rates, so just over 14% of payroll. Our estimate for the covered payroll for 2024, based on the people who were there in our census data 1/1/24 and using our salary increase assumption, is about 81.5 million. So that gives us a contribution of 11.4 million. And again, the budgeted amount is 12.9 million. Given that deferred investment loss, we think it's prudent to go ahead and put in the budgeted amount. So that's our recommendation. Next slide, please. won't spend too much time here. We talked earlier about the investment experience and the demographic, that's liability experience, right in the middle of these charts. But you can see those were the main driver in increasing the contribution rate as well as the decrease in the funded ratio. Next slide. This is your historical funded ratio, which has actually been really great over a long period of time. 80% really is not a magic number in the actuarial world, but it is in Nebraska because the legislature has made it so. If you're below 80%, you get to go visit the retirement system committee, and we have never been down there because we've always been above 80. Again, 93% is a very, very strong funded ratio. Next slide, please. Mark talked about this a while back, it would be about 2012. M.U.D. kind of developed a contribution policy to try to stabilize the contributions and improve the funded ratio more rapidly. Okay, there's an amortization schedule to move us to 100% funded, but you can get there sooner if you contribute more money. And you can see here that the red line is the actual contributions by the district. The blue bars are the actuarial, and you have put in additional monies every year, and that has improved the funded ratio and stabilized the contribution. So that's a very good funding policy.
Pat, is M.U.D. unique in that funding above the recommended level with all the other pension plans? Is that a unique policy that we have?
It's not unique in that no one else does it. It is unique in that there aren't very many people that contribute more than the actuarial contribution. But this idea is catching on because that's the way, if you want to stabilize contributions, that's really the way to go. You have to put more in when it goes down so that when it comes back up, it doesn't kind of put you on that roller coaster ride. So there are a number of systems that did this before, but we've seen more interest in taking this approach with systems to try to stabilize it.
Mark Doyle, President. I'd like to take or give a few comments on that question. It's not unique, but it is the reason why we have a well-funded pension and that we are keeping our promises to our employees. The problem is you'll end up reporting to the legislature if you don't stay the course and you don't take these recommendations. You know, some pension plans, and I'm just telling you what I think now, not what I know, they consider actuarial recommendations just a suggestion. This board has agreed that those are more than a suggestion. Those are the reason that we have this plan as funded as it is. And I'm glad Pat and Mark both are mentioning that our employees contribute 9% of their pensionable payroll. Our customers contribute 14%, and that only happens because of your support. And we just want to let you know, we talk about that internally. We don't take it for granted, and we're here to prove to the public that there's a reason that you do that. We're taking care of a very important public utility that supplies water and natural gas. We need employees that are capable, engaged, and performing at the highest level. So I agree with your answer, but the problem is a lot of them don't do that. And you are, and it's appreciated and not taken for granted. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mark. One other thing, I kind of laughed because Joe Shafford and now Mark Myers, when we were preparing the budgets for the last several years, I always told them, be aggressive on that.
Yeah.
Be aggressive on the budget. Because we want to exceed in our budget what the actuarial suggestion is. And they've always done pretty good on that.
Yeah, and I'm sure Joe's watching right now, as a matter of fact. So.
Mark did a good job this year, too.
Yes.
Agree, of course, yeah.
And just to circle back on that, because I didn't want to minimize that, when I say you're unique, I mean, you're not the only one, but it's probably 5% of the plans in the United States that do that. So that's a very good clarification. Thank you. If we could have the next slide, please. This is what we call a sensitivity analysis, just to illustrate the importance of investment return on the contributions. So you've got kind of three scenarios here. The middle one is the blue bar, which is we meet all assumptions in the future. And you can see below that, These are actuarial contributions, not the budgeted amounts. But you can see that the trend is going up on there, which is why the recommendation was to go ahead and put the $12.9 million in this year. And then if we had a return that was 10% higher than the assumption, that's the green bar, that's a happy one, where all the numbers go down. And then if we miss the assumed return this year by 10%, those are the red bars. So it's just, if you look far out to 2028, the range of returns could drive contributions between 10 million and 17 million. And again, that's why putting more in now helps stabilize that. Great policy. And then a couple years ago, we started just sharing information that comes from the Nebraska Retirement System Committee. It's public record. So if I could have the next slide, I'm sorry. Some of the other retirement systems in the state of Nebraska, this is their funded ratios. M.U.D is on the far right, again, 93%. There are a couple others that are in the 90s, but you can see there are a number that are much more further below that, all the way down to 53%. So very strong. And then if we could look at the next slide. So you're 93%, and you have one of the lower investment return assumptions, a 6.75. Now, a couple of these, Central Nebraska, City of Ralston, those are small plans, and they've been closed for a while, so they have low discount rates, which is appropriate for them. But again, you have a very, very good story to tell.
And Pat, it's no coincidence that, like for the Omaha Police and Fire, their funded target returns are, I don't know, 7.75, something like that, but they're only 58% funded. So that high estimated return versus actual reality really impacts their funded percent, doesn't it?
It has. The other thing that the investment return assumption impacts is the liability. So if you sort of standardize everybody to your discount rate, the people that are above 675, their funded ratio would come down because liabilities would go up, right? So it's pension funding is so hard to boil down to one number, but it's good to just look at kind of the bigger picture. And again, to the extent you have a lower investment return assumption and a higher funded ratio, I mean, that's the best there is. Right. Next slide, and I'll wrap up. We talked about this. The experience this year was unfavorable, both assets and liabilities. On the asset side, it wasn't a huge miss. That helps a little bit. Again, I think the second bullet we talked about before, there's a direct correlation between a well-funded plan, and that's you have to put the money in. That's how it works, and you've done a great job with that. Again, all plans deal with this challenge of volatility with market returns. It just is what it is. And again, you've taken actions to try to address that with your funding policy. I believe that's been successful. There's been a lot of really good decisions made by this board, and I'm really proud to have been part of that. So I thank you. Any questions? All right.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. I believe I have the next item on the agenda as well, the audited financial statements. That's behind tab 13. You'll find a summary memo as well as the 2023 financial statements and supplemental schedules. This information was shared and communicated to the Audit Committee on March 17th, and representatives from RSM were there as well to present the results. I'm pleased to report that RSM has expressed an unmodified or clean opinion on our financial statements again this year. That means that the financial statements are presented fairly, and the financial position of both the gas and water departments are reported accurately as of December 31, 2023. This is good news and definitely a credit to the entire accounting team and everyone across the organization who contributes to the accurate reporting of the district's financial statements. Robert Kreiser from RSM is here today. He's the Assurance Senior Manager, and he'll be speaking just briefly about the audit results.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, Robert Kreiser, Senior Manager from RSM. Yeah, just want to thank Mark, Steve, Cheryl, their team for all their hard work throughout the process. Great to work with. They get us everything timely, make sure that the audit goes smoothly, and it's just a great relationship with them. So we really appreciate their hard work throughout the process. As Mark said, we audit under generally accepted auditing standards to ensure that the financials are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and we issued an unmodified or clean opinion. Each year, we also do additional work around management's accounting estimates. These include depreciable lives of capital assets, unbilled revenue, net pension and OPEB assumptions, fair value of investments. And in the current year, there was a new standard that was implemented by the district. So it was GASB Statement Number 96, or subscription-based information technology arrangements. So last year I talked about GASB Statement 87, which brought on lease right-of-use assets and liabilities. This was similar, bringing on long-term subscription-based IT arrangements as right-of-use assets and liabilities. So in the actual financials, you'll see on page 32 kind of the effect of adopting that statement and its implementation as the district reports comparative financials. That is then required to be retroactively applied all the way back to beginning of 2022. So you can kind of see that impact there. But that, again, there were no issues in that implementation. The implementation was done materially accurate, as well as all of the accounting estimates that we did additional work on. All of those were materially accurate. No other significant changes in this year's financials. The only other thing to note, there is a subsequent event, and that could have some impact on next year's audit and could potentially include a single audit based on if there are expenditures related to those federal dollars for 2024's audit. So just wanted to bring that up so it's not a surprise next year. That is really all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for being here this morning. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the time.
And just to add to what Robert's comments were, the subsequent event that we disclosed in the financial statements is related to the entering into the SRF loan for the lead service replacement program. That was entered into in February. Nothing unusual, but it's a disclosure of a new financial commitment that happened after year end. And because it's federal funds, there are some additional audit requirements, and that's what Robert was referring to there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Mark Doyle, President. I do want to reiterate that we spend a lot of time with the audit committee outside of this monthly board meeting. Those are, you all know that. We appreciate that you delegate the authority to the committee. But when we give a presentation that isn't very long, I want the public and the board to know, and I'm sure you do know, a lot of time goes into this, not just by staff, but you all also. It's great people do this stuff, huh? So we appreciate your attention.
Sure. Sometimes a little
And
makes your head
Robert.
spin. Yeah.
It does, but it's important. We're making a public record, and it's all, about confidence of the public and our board. And thank you to RSM. You're always great to work with, and we understand it's a two-way transaction. If we don't get you what you need and you don't get us what we need, it doesn't flow well. So much appreciated.
Vice President of Accounting, Steve Dickus, will present the 2023 financial review. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. Steve Dickus, Vice President of Accounting. I'll provide a brief recap of the financial results for 2023. And this information is summarized in a document behind tab A entitled 2023 Financial Review. These financial results were shared with the Audit Committee at the meeting on March 18th, and the full year results were also included in the December report on income and finance, which was distributed to the members of the board on March 25th. Beginning on slide 2, we have a high-level summary of revenue, expenses, and net income combined for the gas and water companies. The district performed very well for the year, with revenue exceeding budget and prior year in the water department and slightly down from both budget and prior year in the gas department. Combined net operating revenue for the gas and water companies totaled $275.1 million. This was $2 million, or 0.7% higher than budget, driven by higher volumes sold in both companies, as shown in the chart on the top right of the slide. The chart on the lower left presents operating expenses and other, which totaled $176.5 million. This was $54 million lower than budget. Some of the more significant items contributing to this variance include year-end adjustments related to pension and OPEB expense, resulting in a $21.3 million reduction to expense. We had higher than budgeted cash earnings on invested cash balances of $15 million due to increased yields and higher cash balances. We also had lower depreciation expense. This was $9.7 million lower than budget, and this was primarily due to lower than planned capital spending in 2023. Additionally, we had lower water purification operating expense of $7.7 million, due primarily to lower capital and water treatment expense at all three of our water plants, and lower than budgeted water purification maintenance costs at Platte South and Platte West plants. Other items contributed to this variance as well, but these four items comprise the majority of the favorable expense variance. So this results in net income that was significantly higher than budget in 2023 for both gas and water. As shown in the bottom right chart, combined net income was $98.6 million, or $56 million higher than the budget amount of $42.6 million. Now, as a reminder, not all of this $56 million has a direct impact on our cash balances. Net income, as reported here, is calculated using the accrual basis of accounting, which includes certain non-cash revenue and expense items. Next
How much
slide,
of the
please.
56 is actual cash? I know depreciation, some of those are non-cash.
Yeah, so the depreciation variance of 9.7, as well as the OPEB and pension adjustment of 21.3, that comprises about $30 million. So that's more than half of the 56. There were some other working capital changes as well, but suffice it to say that cash is much less favorable than accrual.
So we had a very strong year, and I understand cash or non-cash, but we had, what'd you say, $30 million of
non-cash.
Non-cash.
$31 million, right.
And that carries over into what? Just
Well, that's essentially, to the extent that we're not spending as much or quickly on our CapEx, some of that will be deferred into 2024. So we won't necessarily see that going forward as well. The GASB pension and OPEB reports that were in your packet describe some of the actuarial assumptions that drive various expense recognition timing on pension and OPEB plans.
Yeah, I understand. My point is that strong income from last year carries over this year. Will that help as we go through the budget process for 2025?
Well, it's certainly strong cash results help us fund future CapEx. We did recognize a lot of this timing variance as we developed a 2024 budget and planned accordingly. So switching over to cash balances, this slide presents changes in unrestricted cash over the past 5 quarters. Now, these unrestricted balances exclude bond project funds and bank accounts which may be restricted for other purposes. The gas department ended 2023 with $181.6 million of unrestricted cash. This is up $41.6 million from December of 2022. The number of days cash on hand increased from 174 in December of 2022 to 330 days at the end of 2023. And this is almost entirely due to lower costs of natural gas experienced over the past year. And this decreases our average daily cash requirements used in the calculation. The Water Department ended 2023 with $121.6 million of unrestricted cash, which is up $18.5 million compared to the prior year. And this represents 453 days cash on hand, increasing from 415 days at the end of last year. Finally, we've got our key financial stability measures. One important measure is the debt service coverage ratio. The district continues to be in compliance with this requirement related to the water and gas revenue bonds. Now, these bonds require that the district maintains rates and charges for services that will provide an amount sufficient to pay current expenses and generate net revenue at least equal to 1.2 times the amount of the average principal and interest requirements on the outstanding bonds. Historically, coverage ratios above 2.0 are considered quite strong, and you can see the district's gas and water departments finished 2023 in the 4.2 to 4.3 times range. The next two metrics address the district's commitments to fulfilling promises made to our employees. Mark and Pat discussed the pension funding ratio, so I won't belabor that point. I would point out that the OPEB funding ratio jumped from 46% at the end of 2022 to 56% at the end of 2023. Finally, you can see a list of the most recent credit ratings assigned by the district rating agencies. The district's financial health was affirmed in October 2023. Fitch Ratings affirmed a AA+ stable rating for our gas department. That's their second highest rating. And Moody's Investor Services affirmed the AA2 credit rating for our water department, which is their third highest rating. So in summary, the district exited 2023 in very solid financial position. Any questions?
Just a comment. I know our revenues, M.U.D's revenues on the gas and water side are very much weather dependent. And, you know, you go with the cold weather, warm weather, or whatever, but I just want to recognize all the employees for their hard work, because operational expenses are a lot of times controlled by the individual employee. And the employees have a good focus to keep costs under control, and that helps with the net income and everything, too. So I just want to say thank you for the hard work, and we'll all pray for the right weather.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Director of Infrastructure Integrity Jared Figuera and Senior Infrastructure Engineer Evan Martin will present the Infrastructure Replacement Program update. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Director Begley, Mark Doa, President. Just as an opening, recall that as I took this role, one of the major initiatives was to get a water infrastructure replacement. It's really replacement, rehabilitation, conditional assessment now. And at some point, the board directed that we give an annual review of the program. It's one of the many significant things, but this one has rapidly changed from almost just reacting to water main breaks to a comprehensive approach that, you know, we're leading the pack in many respects nationally on this topic. And the good news is we're going to take a little time today to give you that annual review, and you can let us know if you want us to continue, but it will shorten up my state of the district. It was kind of one of the main things that I started with. Well, I've evolved, and you know, it allows me the opportunity to let staff show us how they've taken the initiative. You've given them the tools, and it's progress that we're making. And when you saw that leak earlier, I don't want to steal their thunder. I'm really optimistic for the future because of your support and because of staff involvement. But I'd like to focus a little more on the industry, like the gas industry in general, next month. So we're going to keep doing it until we're told different. And with that, take it away.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning. Jared Figuera, Director of Infrastructure Integrity. As mentioned today, Evan Martin and myself are going to be presenting the 2024 IR update. Again, this year we'll be using the Esri story map style presentation like we did last year. This allows us to kind of dig into the mapping and graphics. And as I go along, please feel free to stop me at any point during the presentation with any questions, comments you might have. So starting off, this cover photo here shows our M.U.D crews up in Bennington working to replace some cast iron water mains. For the presentation, I'll start out by summarizing the gas IR program with an overview of what we've achieved since 2008. And some of you might remember this graphic from last year, but I updated it with current year's information. When we started the gas IR program, we had over 560 miles of low pressure and cast iron gas mains. And if you look at the system today, we have just over 100 miles remaining. Zooming in on some of these projects, these orange polygons represent our 2024 gas IR projects. As we move forward with the gas IR program and work to eliminate the remaining cast iron and low pressure miles, we're focusing on getting to zero as safely and as cost effectively as possible. We were really able to ramp up, I'm missing a graph here. Sorry, there it goes, sorry. We were really able to ramp up our miles per year from 2013 to 2021. But now as we move into the remaining most difficult miles, we really need to be more strategic. This dashed line on the graph here shows how our overall targeted IR miles have decreased since the onset of the program. Now, Gas IR 2.0 is a name that's been coined by the engineering department to describe what's next for our gas IR program. This work is intended to take place concurrently with the cast iron gas main replacement that's currently ongoing. The main focus of this work is to eliminate inside meter sets throughout the high pressure system. In most cases, the service lines will also need to be replaced, depending on how many services are in paving as we go through these neighborhoods. Main replacement decisions may also be required, and that's really just to limit the overall disruption of the work. Now, after the meters are moved outside as part of this work, these intermediate pressure systems can be uprated, and then a number of below-ground regulator stations can also be eliminated. Our main replacement efforts so far have made a huge impact on our system's safety and reliability. Less cast iron gas leaks throughout the system have greatly reduced our fugitive methane emissions and have reduced the strain on our gas maintenance crews. All right, moving on to the water IR program, and we're missing some information on this slide as well. Oh no. Sorry, just 1 second here. I believe this happened last year to us, and we tried to mitigate the issue this year, but obviously weren't successful. Just try one thing here. Oh, sorry, Jay, can you help me there? This should just take a second. That happened during my section this time, so yours didn't.
So maybe you noticed on that last slide that Jarrett was showing, I don't know which year it was, we had a spike, maybe Evan knows, where our leak map.
It was 14.
Do you want to explain what that was? I think there was a
weather-related
drought,
a large drought
and that really truly has an impact. And when you have good data, I mean, it's clear as day. So, yeah.
Okay, this is looking a lot better. Thank you, Jay. Just gonna throw it back in full screen mode. All right.
That's grace under pressure.
Yeah, no worries. All right, now for the water IR program. 2023 saw another record year for water main breaks, with 641 breaks throughout the distribution system, which shows the importance of our continued focus on water infrastructure replacement. And this map is just taking those 641 breaks and kind of aggregating them into some pockets there. Our crews collect valuable data from each one of these water main breaks, which we use to update our water main risk scores. And these risk scores are a main driver for our project selections and replacement decisions. This map here shows, this map shows where we replaced water mains last year. And then this map shows where we're going this year. And many of the projects this year are planned to utilize HDPE as a pipe material. So this is really driving into where those project areas are. And then as opposed to last year where we used that material. And then of our 2024 HDPE projects, we're still increasing our use of pipe bursting when possible to reduce costs and increase efficiency. And speaking of efficiency, our district construction crews and contract partners replaced over 18.5 miles of water mains in 2023. This was due to a lot of opportunistic replacement and our crews becoming more experienced with alternate pipe materials and alternate methods such as pipe bursting. Now, condition assessment continues to play an important role in our renewal program and helps us make more strategic replacement decisions. As we increase our replacement goals, we're continuing to improve our design processes and utilize the most cost-effective materials and methods that will reduce our overall life cycle costs. But each water IR project is unique, and pipe material decisions depend on several factors, which Evan will kind of dive into a little bit later in the presentation. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Evan to cover more components of the program.
Thanks, Jared. Evan Martin, Senior Infrastructure Engineer. I'll be discussing our condition assessment program next. Our water system is made up of 240 miles of transmission lines. These pipelines are large diameter and are critical to the operation of our water network. Our system is also made up of 2,900 miles of distribution mains. These are smaller pipelines, and they distribute water more locally to our customers. Our program consists of two areas of inspecting the transmission mains and the distribution mains. This map here shows the project areas that we completed in 2023. We had 5 total project areas where we performed condition assessment. I'll be discussing our concrete inspection project, which is shown here next. It was in Bellevue or Ralston. We continued with the Pure Technologies pipe diver, which is pictured here, to inspect a 42-inch pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe. This was a 2.5-mile inspection using the free swimming tool, which is shown here. It floats neutrally buoyant in the pipeline, and we're able to inspect this entire length within 1 day, which allows us to return to normal operations sooner and have less impact on our M.U.D crews. Pictured here is the extraction of the tool at the west end of the project. We also continued with our distribution main inspection program. We again last year used the Pika Corp Sea Snake to inspect 3 projects, 2 12-inch cast iron projects and 1 16-inch cast iron project. We successfully completed 2 miles of inspections. We continuously improve our methods with these inspections. As you can see here, we have a new engineered design receiver. That was the first time we used this, and we're now able to very efficiently insert and extract these tools, where before it would take a lot of man hours and labor to do the same work. It's pretty seamless now. The benefits of this type of inspection are we receive high granular data back from these inspections. The risk with this type of inspection is the service interruptions to our customers while the tool is in the pipeline. Our M.U.D crews construct these launcher and receiver devices, and they assist during the insertion and inspection. They become highly specialized at this program. We've been doing this since 2021. Going back to the transmission concrete inspection program, we've been performing those inspections since 2006. Last year, we also completed 1.5 miles of inspection using the Hydromax PCAT Infinity. This was a pilot project on smaller diameter 6-inch cast iron main in residential areas. The benefit to this type of inspection is 0 impact to customer service, with the risks being the data that we receive back is less granular than the Sea Snake inspection. All in all, we completed 3.5 miles of our 4-mile goal. We came up a bit short on one of our 12-inch inspections on 120th Street due to some unforeseen field issues that came up on that project. In 2024, we plan to increase our goal of inspection miles, going from 4 miles last year up to 6 miles this year. We had a few M.U.D firsts in addition to our new launcher and receiver designs. This pictured here is an insertion valve. This is where a valve is installed and tapped on a live water main. So once this work is complete, we have a fully functional valve on a live water main with 0 interruptions to service customers. We use this on our condition assessment projects to isolate the areas of installation of our launcher receiver without any service interruptions to customers. We think there's more applications for this technology going forward, so we continue to look at new practices and technologies in our department. Another first is the 16-inch cast iron main, which is pictured here on Blondo Street. This was the largest cast iron inspection that we've performed at M.U.D, with 12-inch being the previous size that we had performed. Now I'll discuss construction methods and materials. Like Jared mentioned, we continue to use high-density polyethylene. We're seeing efficiencies with design, constructability, reductions in cost. We really like this material due to its resistance to corrosion. And it's a natural transition for us at M.U.D. We are also a gas utility, and we've been using this material for years. So we have experience with the installation methods, and our crews are trained on this material. Compared to other utilities, they may have a more difficult time making a transition like we were able to. We completed 6 miles of HDPE in 2023. We also continue with our pipe bursting construction method. We completed 5.3 miles last year, and this is an efficient way to install HDPE pipe. The installation process is the HDPE pipe is pulled through an existing cast iron main, and the pipe is bursted around as it's pulled through. So it's just a very efficient way to install this in the same alignment as the previous pipe. There are limitations to where we can do this and when we can perform these. We limit it to the warmer summer months due to the above grade bypass piping that we have to use. But we see many opportunities for this method going forward, and this year we plan to increase the number of miles to 6.1 miles as projected. We continue to use other materials in our water system like PVC and ductile iron. Every project that we have has many design variables that are very specific to that project. Some examples of that would be pressure, fire flow requirements, large service connection considerations, and those are just to name a very few of the considerations that we take. So here's pictured a PVC project, and here's a ductile iron project that we completed last year. 2023 was a big year for our asset management software and program. The GIS IT team went through a major software upgrade, going to Esri GIS Arc Pro. In addition to that, we now have a new data model called the Utility Network. So we now have industry-leading GIS software and a data model that's geared toward water and gas utilities. That was a big impact to our integrity team, which also included an upgrade of our risk model software to AquaTwin. So we now have an industry-leading risk model software that seamlessly ties into this new GIS software that we have. And this is pictured here. It allows our team to more efficiently perform analysis and utilize all of the data that we have to make these replacement decisions. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
I have a question. It may be a silly question, but with all these tools that we insert into the pipeline to measure, look for leaks and everything, do they scratch the interior of the pipe itself? And is there any chance that some of that scratching falls and impacts the quality of water?
They're not designed to have any impact on the lining of the pipeline. We do clean the pipeline with a foam pig prior to insertion of the tool, and that's so that we get better data and there's less chance of the tool getting stuck or something like that.
So we don't have any quality issues with using all these tools and everything?
We work with our water distribution department very closely, and they follow the flushing and disinfectant procedures after these inspections to make sure everything is returned back to safe operating conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Mark Doyle, President. It's not a silly question, and if you watch the process, it's impressive how meticulous everyone is with disinfecting the tools that go through. But naturally, there would be some sediment maybe and it comes out the other end, and it's very meticulously put back into service with it. It's impressive. It's not a silly question at all, and the bigger deal is, especially with these concrete mains, that how many miles do we have of concrete mains? 40-some?
40 miles,
And we've inspected
13 and a half.
Yeah, and these are big mains that you don't just replace. So we do focus our conditional assessment on the larger transmission mains, of which some of them are concrete and they have steel bands in them. We are operating on the distribution system as well. Director Sidzik and I visited a pipe bursting project near Ralston early on so we're doing things in the neighborhood. That wasn't conditional assessment, that was pipe bursting, but we're using these all over. But the conditional assessment might be targeted at the more, not near term. We know where we have to be, wherever our water main breaks are and wherever our data says we got to get these replaced right away. We go a little farther out and we conditionally assess. Is that an accurate?
That's right.
And we try to get a higher useful life out of those mains that are appropriate for robotics assessment or the insertion into the hydrant. It's impressive. It's absolutely industry leading. Appropriately. We're using the resources that you give us, in my estimation, in a very effective and appropriate way. And our laboratory is the production system. We don't have the luxury of some development system. The tools are well tested, but we have to take our best efforts to do what we do for the first time on our production water system. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this topic, but nice presentation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I didn't mean to circumvent that.
Thanks for the presentation, gentlemen. Are there any members of the public in attendance today who would like to address the board? Seeing none, do any board members have any further comments about anything that was discussed this morning? Seeing none. This meeting is now concluded, and we will adjourn for 10 minutes and reconvene at 9:51. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Jim Begley. I'm the chairperson of the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors. I'd like to welcome you all to the regular monthly board meeting this morning, April 3rd, 2024. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building located at 7350 World Communications Drive, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the M.U.D website after the meeting's conclusion. Roll call.
Begley.
Here.
Cook. Here. Friend.
Here.
Sidzik.
Here.
McGowan.
Here.
Howard. Here. Kavanaugh.
I'd like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available on the wall in the back of the boardroom. Those who wish to participate, I'd like to invite you to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes for the committee meetings and a regular board meeting for March 6, 2024. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Director Friend.
Thank you, sir. Item number 5, capital expenditures. This was discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Kendall Minor dated March 26th.
Second.
Discussion.
Once again.
Roll call.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Item number 6, acceptance of contracts, payment of final estimates. Also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Adam Gartner dated March 19th.
Second. Okay.
Discussion. Roll call.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Item number 7, bids on materials and contracts during the month of March, also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Sherry Lightfoot dated March 20th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Item number 8, main extensions, also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Masa Nia dated March 25th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Item number 9, amendment number 2 to the Southeast Bellevue Water Main Extensions Project, HDR Engineering, also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from James Bartles dated March 11th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Item number 10, wage and/or salary increases and ratifications. I move for approval of the wage and salary increases and ratifications as discussed in committee this morning and outlined in Ms. Savine's memo dated March 26, 2024.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
With Director Kavanaugh out, Director Cook.
Yes. I move that we accept the, what do? We're putting it on record?
I think we just put it on file since there's
Yeah.
no change.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to put this on file, no changes, so we don't really need a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cook. Item number 12, Director Howard.
Actuarial evaluation report on the retirement plan. I make a motion. Thank you so much. Cue cards. Actuarial valuation report on the retirement plan. I make a motion that we accept the information as provided to us this morning.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion. Roll call.
Begley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Sidzik?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Director McGowan, item 13.
On the audit, 2023 audited financial statement, I asked that report be placed on file.
Thank you, sir. Oh, repeat that, please, Director
Yes,
McGowan.
I'm sorry. We got to get this straight, man. The actual 2023 audited financial statement, I ask that report be placed on file.
Thank you, Director McGowan.
Yeah.
Mr. Mendenhall.
Are you going to talk about the actuarial?
Yeah,
Yes,
just
thanks,
as a point
Mark.
of clarification, if I could, and I hate to go back, but tab 12, the actuarial valuation report, my preference would be an actual vote since we are setting that 12.9. So that's the piece that I think we're looking for approval on. So if we could have a vote on that again. So thank you, Director Howard, and I'm sorry I didn't bring that to your attention earlier.
So do we need to rephrase a motion?
Yeah, I think that would be the best approach, yes.
Okay.
So the motion would be something like,
Okay.
we accept the actuarial valuation and the recommended contribution of, I'm not looking down at the number. Yeah, Dave, come on.
As listed in the report.
There you go. It's okay. We're all kind of.
Have we got it now?
Yes.
All right.
But that's not my motion. I can't
Oh,
do
I make
that.
the motion that
I
we
can't do that
accept the actuarial information report on the retirement plan as listed in the report. Is that good? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion. Roll call.
Begley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Sidzik?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Other matters of district business for discussion. Do any board members have any further comments they wish to share at this time? Seeing none, are there any members of the public present who would like to address the board on any matter discussed today or any matter that they're concerned about? Seeing none, we will now go into closed session. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
I move we go into closed session.
Second. For the purposes of discussing personnel matters or litigation.
I move that we go into closed session for the purposes of discussing matters of litigation. And personnel.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Begley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Sidzik?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
For all attendees other than directors and designated staff, please exit the room at the rear of the boardroom. I was going to say, Do we have a motion to return to open session?
I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Begley?
Yes.
Cook?
Tanya?
Cook?
Yes. Aye. Go,
Friend?
let's go back.
Friend?
Yes.
Sidzik?
Yes.
McGowan? Howard?
Yes.
Are there any directors or members of the public present who have any comments to share at this time? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so move. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Begley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Sidzik?
Yes.
McGowan? Howard?
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned.